Welcome to the new course Linux Administration, the BCA. So we will discuss about the operating system functions as a prerequisite in this Linux course. So before that, you have to basic knowledge of the operating system. After that, you can go through the Linux. So this is the syllabus of the Linux operating system, Linux administration. First unit, we will cover the Unix environment and installation of Linux. And in this, we will discuss general introduction of operating system, Unix operating system, architecture of the Unix, methods of installation, installing Fedora, installing Ubuntu servers, and dual booting concepts, issues, comparison between Unix and Linux, and general basic commands, different type of commands, general purpose commands, file oriented command, directory oriented commands, and communication oriented command, process oriented commands we will discuss in the second unit, and starting and stopping activities of the Linux. And in the third unit, we will discuss about the file system and its attributes. Different type of attributes are there in the files, directories, file ownership, directory permission, file ownership, change permissions, and locating modification access times. We will discuss in this third unit. In the fourth unit, we will discuss about the boot methods and Linux file systems. So there are different phases in the boot methods. So all phases we will discuss in this boot methods and Linux file system. And in the fifth unit, we will discuss about the VI editor, feature of the different shell, IO shell, control structures, loops, subprograms, shell scripts, and different type of script we can generate, how files can be created, how scripts can be saved, how scripts can be executed. So all we discuss about the programming concept we will discuss in the shell programming. And in the last unit, this is research based unit. In this, we will discuss the latest trends in Linux. Either that is the revival of the some distributions and new Linux based hardwares, and how the Linux and supercomputing, uh, the expansion of Linux. So we will discuss about the some recent or new things in the Linux. So these following are the four six outcomes based on their units. Okay. After that, what we achieve after the completing the syllabus. Okay. So this introduction of the operating system, that all of you know, understand the operating system is like the middleware, or you can say is the medium or an interface between the hardware and software. We can execute our applications and different type of apps on the hardware applications, system softwares, that is known as the operating system. Generally, this is the definition of operating system. So what is the history of the Unix? So Unix is an operating system which was first developed in 1960 and has been under constant development ever since. And that already you know, it is a continuous development of every program, every software, every system software. So latest versions are properly coming in every year or later on. So by operating system, we mean the suite of programs which make the computer work. So it is stable, multi-user, multitasking for servers, desktop, and laptop. Okay, so all of you know this is Unix is the command-based operating system, and so Unix system also have a graphical user interface similar to MS Windows, which provides an easy-to-use environment. As GUI comes for the Windows, same way we may use also the Unix. However, the knowledge of Unix is required for operations, which are not covered by the geographical programs. Okay. So this is the Linux operating system architecture, simple architecture of the Linux operating system. So this is an operating system or a kernel distributed under an open source license. This is the beauty of this Linux operating system, that it is an open source software, open source license. Or no, everyone can use this particular distribution of Linux. Kernel is freely available, or distributions are freely available to all the users. Yeah. And the kernel, what is the kernel? The kernel is a program at the heart of the Linux operating system that takes care fundamental stuff like letting hardware communicate with software. So in between the this operating system and this hardware. The kernel is the medium that communicates directly to the hardware. So kernel is very important in this Linux operating system. By the use of kernels, different type of distributions can be uh, mm, prepared according to the requirement of the industry. So this is the basic general figure. This you can view this hardware, operating system, and end user. Between hardware and operating system, kernel can do the things and processing. Next is the benefits of the using Linux. So Linux now enjoys popularity at its time, and it's famous among programmers as well as regular computer users around the world. Its main benefits are it offers a free operating system. Okay, everyone can use purchase without any without pay. It is freely available. Okay, so you do not have to sell hundreds of dollars to get OS like Windows. This is not shell, this is cell. So being open source, anyone with programming knowledge can modify it. Okay. The Linux operating system now offers millions of programs, applications to choose, most of them free. Once you have Linux installed, you no longer need an antivirus. Okay. Linux is highly secure system. So so there is a global development community constantly looking for the enhanced security. Okay. So these are the benefits of the Linux operating system. Linux is the OS of choice for server environments due to its stability, reliability. Okay. So these mega companies are using for their servers the Linux operating system. Linux-based server could run up non-stop without a reboot for years to end. So like companies, Amazon, Facebook, Google, and big companies, big organizations use Linux for their server administration, because it is very reliable and it is very secure in comparison to other operating systems. The main advantage of Linux was that programmers were able to use the Linux kernel to design their own custom operating system. With time, a new range of user-friendly OS stormed the computer world. Now Linux is one of the most popular and widely used kernel, and it is the backbone of the operating system. Some operating systems like Debian, Knopex, Ubuntu, and Fedora are the different name of the distributions of Linux. So hundreds of distributions are available in the market according to the requirement of the organizations. This you can understand. Linux distribution. Distribution means the version of the operating system, you can say. Linux is open source, free to use kernel. It is used by the programmers, organizations, profit and non-profit companies around the world create operating systems to suit their individual requirement. Next, to prevent hacking attempts, many organizations keep their Linux operating system private. Many others make their variations of Linux available publicly so the whole world can benefit at large. These versions, types, kits of Linux operating system are called distributions. Okay. So simply, the versions and types and kinds of operating system are called distributions. Distributions or distro. By both names, we can identify. There are hundreds of Linux operating systems or distributions available these days. Many of them are designed with a specific purpose in mind. For example, to run a web server or to run a network switches like routers, modems, etc. So many activities, so many tasks we can perform by these Linux distributions. The latest example of one of the most popular smartphone-based Linux distribution is Android. You, you, most of the users doesn't know that the Android is also the one of the distribution of Linux. It is a very popular operating system because in the this smartphones, so many users, most of the users are using the Android smartphones. Okay, so many of these distributions are built to offer excellent personal computing. Okay, here are few popular Linux distributions also called Linux distro. So these are some books which you can refer for the Linux administration syllabus. This first book is Linux Administration. This is for the beginner's guide. Second one is Red Hat System Administration. So Red Hat. That is next one is Introduction to Unix and Shell Programming. That is Pearson Education book. And last one is Alan Xavier, Stephen Figgins, Robert Love, Arnold Robbins. Linux in a nutshell. Okay. For further information, you can contact my mail ID. This is sudeep.yadav at the rate galgotiasuniversity.edu.in. Okay. So thank you so much. If any query, any question, then you can mail me.